In most fairy tales, a princess is enchanting. In some, she is also enchanted. Because their mothers ate forbidden fruits, Rapunzel, a German princess, and Tangletop, a Norwegian princess, were born under spells. In France, Sleeping Beauty got the gift of a 100-year nap because a spiteful fairy wasn't invited to the special baby shower, I guess. In a different French tale, another uninvited fairy vows that Princess May Blossom will be the unluckiest of the unlucky. At any age and any place, Princess may fall under a spell. If she's changed into something else, she must remain in that form until someone breaks the enchantment. A sad Irish legend tells how Princess Utain became a butterfly. Margaret, daughter of the King of Northumberland, is turned into a monstrous dragon in an English fairy tale. In an old Italian tale, the princess becomes an enchanted fish. Princesses and swan feathers are found in Germany, Africa, and Hungary. A story from Bulgaria tells about a princess who is turned into a dove. And in the Andes Mountains of Colombia, Princess Kiera appears as a golden duck swimming on a lake. And I've done... So this is interesting because I've done the Princess and the Frog story elsewhere on this channel, but this time you'll be getting to hear the reverse, where the princess is the frog. Sometimes a prince or a princess is bewitched as a frog, and according to an Alaskan story, that's what happened to the daughter of a Tlingit chief. In this Skazka, a fairy tale from Russia, the Tsar's son takes on an ugly frog as his princess bride. In old Russia, across the blue salt sea, beyond the green forest, behind the gray granite mountains, lay the kingdom of Tsar Verlioka. This Tsar was a wise ruler, and was the father of 3 handsome sons. When the time came for the 3 princes to marry, Tsar Verlioka told them, "Each of you will shoot an arrow into the air. Whoever claims the arrow, wherever it falls, will be your bride." Peter, the oldest son, took aim first. His golden arrow whistled over the mountains, arched above the treetops, and then plunged toward the sea. It fell on the deck of a fine merchant ship, and at the feet of the captain's lovely daughter. Marco, the second son, shot his silver arrow next. It skimmed over the mountains and dropped to the earth in the forest. The daughter of a boyar, a nobleman, discovered it there. Ivan, the youngest son, was last to take his turn. Although he pulled his bowstring almost to breaking, his brass arrow did not fly far or high. It struck the rocky mountainside and splashed into the swamp below. Ivan waded into the muddy water in search of it. Any noise, even the whine of a gnat, startled him, for he'd heard that the witch Baba Yaga sometimes lurked in the bog. Ivan did not want to cross her path, for she was as likely to eat a man as greet him. As he peered around him, he stumbled over a very large and ugly frog. Clutched in its webbed toes was Ivan's brass arrow. "Give me my arrow," Ivan ordered. Then he added, "Please?" The frog did not move. It did not even twitch. It fixed its bulging eyes on Ivan and croaked, "Bah! Bah!" "Stubborn creature," Ivan cried. "The soup kettle is where you belong." He grasped both the frog and the arrow and thrust them into his knapsack and trudged home. Ivan's brothers were waiting at the palace. Peter stood beside the captain's lovely daughter. Marco held the noble lady's hand. Tsar Verlioka asked Ivan, "Who found your arrow, my son?" "Look!" Ivan upended his knapsack, spilling out the frog. "Ugh!" cried the captain's daughter and the noble lady. "What shall I do now?" Ivan asked his father. "Do?" The Tsar tugged thoughtfully at his long white beard. "Why, you must marry the frog, of course. That is your fate." Ivan stared at his father, horrified, but the frog grinned, stretching its mouth wide. The 3 princes shared one wedding celebration. Peter's bride, whose name was Sonia, rode to the church in a golden carriage. Olga, Marco's wife-to-be, arrived in a coach of silver. Ivan called his frog Vasilisa and carried her to the ceremony in an old brass samovar used for making tea. Vasilisa did not like being caged in the teapot. "Nyet, nyet," she complained, bumping against the lid until Ivan let her out. From then on, she traveled on his shoulder. Nor would she eat flies like other frogs. Instead, she squatted on the supper table and licked her tongue into Ivan's soup. At bedtime, she plopped down on the pillow beside his bed. After a month had passed, Tsar Verlioka called his sons to him. "I would measure the talents of your wives," said the Tsar. He gave each prince a length of fine linen. "Tonight, bid your wife to stitch this into a shirt." When Peter gave his cloth to Princess Sonia, she cut one shirt sleeve too short and the other too long. The seams were sewed together as wavy as rivers. When Marco gave his cloth to Princess Olga, she poked her finger with the needle and began to cry. Ivan took his cloth to the frog princess and told her, "My father would have you make this into a shirt." "Tak," croaked Vasilisa. "So?" She hopped up and down on the linen and tore it to shreds with her toes. You are nothing but a senseless animal," Ivan shouted. He ran out, slamming the door behind him. The frog dragged the tatters of cloth across the floor and threw them out the window. Then she turned a backward somersault and croaked, "Glah!" A shirt, perfect to the last button, flapped into the room and dropped at her feet. The next morning, the three brothers took their shirts to their father. Tsar Verlioka scorned Princess Sonia's lopsided sewing. He scowled at the speckles of blood on Princess Olga's effort. Then he held up Vasilisa's shirt. "This is marvelous," the Tsar exclaimed, and put it on at once. Ivan smiled at his frog princess. 1 month later, Tsar Verlioka said to his sons, "I would know which princess is the best at baking. Tell each to make a loaf of bread for my breakfast." When Sonia heard that, she grumbled to Olga, "Another test! Another chance for Vasilisa to show off." "Or practice witchcraft," warned Olga. "Let's watch. Let's see for ourselves what that hideous frog is up to." The two squeezed inside a kitchen cupboard, leaving the door open a crack to spy on their sister-in-law. They giggled when Vasilisa flopped clumsily onto the table, but she pretended not to hear. First, the frog jumped into the bin of flour, scattering it like snow around the room. Next, she spilled a bucket of dishwater and broke a dozen eggs on the floor. With a broom, she swept everything into a pan and pushed the pan into the oven. "Bake, bake, bake," she chanted in her hoarse voice. Soon the kitchen smelled deliciously of fresh baked bread. Vasilisa left the crusty loaf to cool and hopped out the door. Sonia and Olga crept from the cupboard. Since they dare not steal Vasilisa's loaf, they mixed a batch of sticky dough exactly as the frog princess had. Then they shoved it into pans and put them in the oven and commanded, "Hurry up, bread, bake!" Smoke poured from the stove and swirled overhead like thunderclouds. Sonia snatched the bread from the oven, but the loaves were already as black as cinders and hard as bricks. At breakfast the next morning, Prince Ivan was gleeful when Tsar Verlioka left no doubt whose bread he liked the best. A third month passed, and this time the Tsar told his sons, "We shall have a ball and invite everyone to meet your wives." On the day of the dance, Sonia and Olga put on their prettiest gowns and their brightest jewels. Vasilisa wore her drab green skin as always and hid inside the brass samovar. "Come out," Ivan ordered. "I must present you." The lid on the samovar jiggled, and a loud "Yet" came from beneath it. Ivan had to go without his frog princess. The great hall of the palace swarmed with boyars and their ladies, with rich merchants and their wives, with soldiers and scholars, shopkeepers, blacksmiths, farmers, and all of their families. They cheered when they caught sight of Princess Sonia and Princess Olga. But when Ivan appeared without Princess Vasilisa, rumors buzzed about the ballroom like mosquitoes. "I hear she's a toad," said a gossip, "or something worse." All of a sudden, a gust of wind blew open the doors, and in swept an enchanting maiden. Her hair was the color of autumn wheat, and her cheeks were as rosy as summer apples. Her dress, as white as winter snow, was scattered with pearls. Tsar Verlioka bowed and said, "Please join us, my lady." "Do you not know me, dear father?" she replied. "I am Vasilisa, Ivan's own frog princess." The Tsar stared at her open-mouthed. When he found his voice again, he said, "Then, daughter, honor me with a dance." The musicians played tune after tune as Tsar Verlioka and Princess Vasilisa whirled around the ballroom. All the crowd applauded except for Marco and Peter and their wives. Sonia and Olga were too jealous, and the princess too confused. Is she truly your wife? They asked Ivan. What happened? I do not know, Ivan replied, but I'm going to find out. Prince Ivan hurried to Vasilisa's room to look inside the samovar. In his haste, he slipped on something soft but bumpy. Ivan bent down. At his feet lay the warty green skin of a frog. The little coat of my frog princess. He waved it like a banner. Without it, Vasilisa can never be a frog again. Ivan dashed down the stairs and threw the frog skin in the kitchen stove. The skin hissed and crackled on the coals and crumpled to ashes, leaving behind a telltale wisp of smoke. Princess Vasilisa found Ivan in the kitchen. Why did you leave? She stopped and sniffed. Is something burning? Your awful frog skin, cried Ivan. Good riddance to it. You have ruined everything. Tears splashed Vasilisa's cheeks. Koschei the sorcerer changed me into a frog I had to stay unless someone took me as his wife for 3 times 30 days. My time was up at midnight, but you, she dabbed at her eyes, you burned my frog skin an hour too soon. Forgive me, Ivan dropped to his knees. Tell me what I must do. Seek me in the 30th kingdom, at the house of the witch Baba Yaga. Vasilisa clapped her hands. Her gown became a cloak of white feathers, and the pearls became drops of dew. As Ivan watched, Vasilisa turned into a swan and flew out the window. Prince Ivan bid farewell to his family and set out to find his frog princess. He climbed over the gray granite mountains, tramped through the green forest, and sailed across the blue salt sea. He traveled for weeks and months and even years, wearing out 4 horses and 6 pairs of boots. At the far border of the 30th kingdom, Ivan came to a little hut balanced on 2 spindly chicken legs. He guessed at once who lived there. Bravely, Ivan marched to the door. Boldly, he lifted the latch and walked in. Asleep before the fireplace was an old lady, bony as a skeleton, with knees like bed knobs and elbows as sharp as spades. Her long nose poked up the chimney, and she was snoring and snuffling loudly as a pig. Baba Yaga? Ivan whispered. The witch sat up and screeched, I smell a Russian! I am Ivan Tsarevich, Baba Yaga. Ah, she pinched his arm. Just in time for my supper. I cannot stay. I am searching for my wife, Vasilisa. Your frog wife works for Koschei the sorcerer, said Baba Yaga, scowling. But she stops here every morning. Then I shall see her, Ivan exclaimed. Swamp creatures, that's what you'll see. Baba Yaga bobbed her head. Catch them, hold them, do not let them free. Should you grasp an arrow, snap it on your knee. I don't understand, Ivan began, but the witch had fallen asleep again, this time with her feet stuck up the chimney. While Ivan was wondering what to do next, he heard wings flapping and a white swan swooped through the door. Vasilisa, he shouted, catching the bird in his arms. The swan struggled, shedding her feathers, and became a frog. I know you now, said Ivan, holding on tight. The frog's lumpy skin became scales, and a mudfish flopped into his hands. Please, cried Ivan, hold still. The slippery scales of the fish became the soft fur of a weasel. The weasel snarled and snapped at Ivan. Do not bite, dear wife, he begged. Wiggling, the weasel turned into a swamp snake. The snake coiled and hissed, but Ivan did not lose his grip. Then suddenly, it became as stiff and straight as a poker. My brass arrows, Ivan exclaimed, for that's what it was. Remembering Baba Yaga's words, he squeezed his eyes shut and struck the arrow sharply on his knee. The arrow snapped with a crack like thunder. Ivan opened his eyes and found himself clasping the hands of Princess Vasilisa. Now you have truly broken Koschei's spell, Vasilisa smiled at him. Ivan, my husband, let us go home. The return journey took no time at all, for Baba Yaga sped them through the sky in her flying mortar, pushing the clouds aside with her broom. When they reached Zara's palace, Vasilisa said to her, "Thank you, little mother, for helping us." "Thank you," the witch chuckled. "I enjoyed playing a trick on that villain Koschei." The whole kingdom celebrated the return of the prince and princess. In time, Ivan sat on the throne as Tsar, and Vasilisa sat beside him as Tsarina.